Oh, friends! Here we are, another RobCast, and today we have with us, I'm going to use this word straight up, legendary Flanny. Welcome, Flanny.
Thank you so much.
I've been looking forward to interviewing you for the RobCast because of how many fantastic stories you've already told me and knowing that there are so many more.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out how to tell people why you mean so much to me and how we became friends and what you do.
Right.
Because how do I even begin to introduce Flanny? But first off, let me say, you'll tell the Bo story at some point in this Robcast?
I'll tell it if you like. I'll tell the Bo story.
Okay, at some point
Yes.
we're going to head towards the Bo story. Everybody.
Bo Burnham.
Anyway, let me back up and say this, everybody. You hear me talking, I often will tell you that I'm doing a show at Largo, and I will talk about this magical club here in LA, like music comedy sort of club. Flanny is the owner of Largo. So that just gives you like some baseline, this place that I speak of, this mythical realm that we speak of. Flanny is the owner. Now, what's fascinating about it is he is like you're like the curator of a community at some level. So you're from Ireland.
Yes.
You end up in L.A.
End up in Los Angeles, yeah, in 92.
And what did you come here to do?
I came here to get away from the cold of Boston where I was studying. And I had been there for 3 years, and it was so cold. The last year that I was there, it was the coolest year in recorded history. I decided to take a road trip, knowing the inner self was going, get out of the inner self, out of Boston. And I decided to take a trip across the country with the idea that I knew that I wanted to be in America. I knew it wasn't New York as much as I loved it at the time, that I was looking for somewhere warmer and somewhere that I could feel that I wanted to live in. And so
Because you knew you didn't want to stay in
yeah,
Belfast.
I definitely didn't want to stay. We moved, my family moved out of Belfast when I was, in my teens. And it was really politically and in every way really bad for anyone living in Belfast at the time. There was a lot of violence, and when I was 8, there was 1,600 bombs detonated that year in this tiny town of Belfast.
1,600 bombs.
Yeah, and we had family members killed, and it was getting closer and closer and closer. My mother said, "That's it, we're out." So we moved to Southern Ireland, and we went to the west coast of Ireland, which William Butler Yeats made very famous, to a town called Sligo, where he's buried. And I went to college there. I went to finish my high school there, and then I moved to Dublin because I wanted to be closer to the arts and stuff like that. And I finished my education there, and everybody in 1989, 88, 89 in Ireland, there was no work. So everyone was in college, like 80% of all.
Oh, there's no job, so just keep going to school.
Keep going. So can you do a master's? Can you do a PhD? So anyone that graduated either went to America or Australia or England. That was it. There was no jobs. And so if you finished your college thing, so the most educated, unemployed people in the world, like unreal. So there was a definite thing in the last year of college of going, I need to plan to get out of here. I always knew I wanted to go to America. Since I was a kid, I'd look at things, Steve McQueen in The Great Escape. I was like, he got out of there, I'll get out of here.
Really?
Yeah. And so I knew I wanted to go to America. So the long story short was I ended up in LA through a process of elimination. I drove across. I went to Memphis because I was very music minded. I went to Memphis, Nashville, and New Orleans. Drove down those, and I never felt the vibe. And I loved them. And I was like, not yet, not yet. And then I took that horrible drive on the 10 from New Orleans to LA. And I arrived, and a friend offered me a place to live in Venice on Abercrombie. He had a beautiful place, very similar to this. And he went out of town for 3 months and said, just stay there. And so I stayed there, and it was 75 degrees, and it was January, and I went, this is it. The very first day I sat on the beach, and I had a newspaper. We had newspapers at the time, and I sat, and it fluttered around the beach. And I sat there, and I went, this is it. And I knew, and it's never changed, never wavered. It's only strengthened since then.
So when somebody says, Flanny, where should I live? You would say, get in a car,
Yeah.
start driving,
Yes.
and then at some point, if you get out and you like it, stay.
Better still, tying in with Rob Bell's book, here becomes obvious.
Yeah.
When you get there, you go, this is it. This is where and listen.
It could be anywhere.
It could be anywhere, but there's a very strong sense of this is where I want to be. No, so that was weather, but it was more than weather. It was more than 75 degrees. It was more the opportunity that I thought, having talked to a few people, because I knew nobody here. Nobody. that I talked to a few people and they said, no, this is typical. This is what it's like. And I went, okay, I'll do more with my life if the weather's like this.
So you arrived in LA and you didn't know anybody, because now I feel like you know everybody.
Right.
How did you get into?
So
Did
it's a
you
very
buy Largo at some
yes,
point?
yes, I did. But it started in 92. A friend introduced me to a guy who wanted to open a bar, who is Irish, and I knew just the kind of 6 degrees thing. But I went to college with his brother in Dublin. And he said, if you're ever out in LA, and I never thought of this, and I went to Boston, never thought I'm going to be in LA. And then one day I was sitting there and I went, you know, I actually do know somebody here. So I called up this guy, and his wife was working at a bar called Molly Malone's on Fairfax
Yeah,
Avenue.
right here, right here. Yeah.
And the manager of that place, another Irish guy, was looking to stop managing Molly Malone's and open his own venue, his own bar, sorry. And so he was looking around, and he just happened to mention to me, he says, you know about music, right? And I said, how do you know? And he goes, well, he told me that you book stuff and that you're musical and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, I'm looking at this place, and it has a strong musical presence, but I don't know anything about it. Would you mind coming? And this is like literally a few weeks in LA. And I went, okay, where is it? And he goes, it's up the street on Fairfax. And I went, okay. So we met at Cantor's Delicatessen for a coffee, and then we went across and we saw this place which was called Cafe Largo. And it was a small, very much a dinner theater thing that a French guy was running, and he was doing music. And the big part of the license was the music. That's why people were coming. So the rest was, how do we cater to the people that are coming for music? So food, drinks. He was very much into that. And then he suddenly, we walked in and we looked around the place, and he had a conversation with the French guy, and the French guy says, it's been on the market for a while. I will literally give you, just name a price. I'm out of here. And so he negotiated a price. And then it took a while with his licenses and stuff. So he started this business and asked me to come in and book the music. And I had saved a bit of money, and I said, I'll buy into it. I'll invest in you, because he did need a bit of money. I'll invest, so make me a partner, and I'll do that. So I did that, and it became from the day I opened, there was a few people that were playing there that were pivotal. So there was a guy called Grant Lee Phillips. There was another singer called E, who became the Eels. There was a lot of people around the fringe that were just starting up, and it was time and place. Within months, I started the comedy thing that became legendary.
Yeah.
But
That's Jack Black, Will Ferrell.
everybody, yeah, well, a lot of the Groundlings people, but actually more to the thing that drew them in was stand-up comedians. So David Cross, Mitch Hedberg, Sarah Silverman, all these, Zach Galifianakis, all these people, Greg Proops, Paul F. Tompkins, all these stand-ups that are doing podcasts and are famous now were all starting around that time.
And did you
Not in 92, by the way.
did you know when you would hear somebody do stand-up, this person is funny?
Yes. So I didn't come from a comedy background, and obviously I love comedy. And one of the biggest comedians in Britain is a guy called Billy Connolly, who was from Scotland,
Sure.
and he was very blue collar, but very funny, and still very funny. And I always loved that, but I never thought I was going to do anything with comedy. I did primarily with singer-songwriters. So with Elliott Smith and Colin Hay and Amy Mann and John Bryan.
Colin Hay, Men at Work. Mm-hmm. Oh, my
By
first
the way,
cassette ever.
one of the very first people ever to play there. He just happened to be playing up the street, and I just said, I've got a place. And we've been friends ever since. But he's the one exception because he's very funny. Amy Mann and Elliott Smith were not funny. And they would sing these songs about the fact that somebody's gone and their heart is broken. And after about 4 or 5 months of that, I went, I need some fucking comedy. This is really heavy. And so
Amy Mann was.
she was.
Just keep it down now.
Yes, exactly.
Voices
Voices carry.
Carry?
But then right
Was
after.
that a band? Was that Amy Mann or was that a band?
No, her band was called Till Tuesday. And
Till Tuesday, sure,
they were
sure.
from Boston. And the producer of Amy Mann's solo record is John Bryan. And I got to meet Amy through him because they were out mixing the record and they were looking for a place to hang out. And so they came. And a friend of mine from Boston says, you should meet John. And John became the thing that built Largo because he's such a brilliant musician.
Yeah.
That people would be like, I'm coming to see this guy.
John Bryan, Brion, folks.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him at Largo play the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never seen somebody do that to a piano.
John went from producing Amy Mann in very quick succession to producing Rufus Wainwright's first record, Fiona Apple's records, doing the music for films such as Paul Thomas Anderson's movies and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind with Jim Carrey, and then producing Kanye West's record, Late Registration, and then has continued to just grow and grow and do these amazing movies and the work that he does himself. But he was the nest that people felt very secure to drop in, and new things would come out of it. And he played every Friday night, and then on every Monday night we had this comedy show which was called the Largo Comedy Show, and it drew in every comedian that you can name. You name a comedian, that George Carlin dropped by, Robin Williams dropped by, either to perform or hang out in the community.
So Robin Williams would show up. Would he
Never
show up unannounced?
No, and sorry, not to drop big names, but they were the biggest names in comedy, would come to see what is going on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Eddie Izzard and people would perform, like big comedian, like he would perform.
Let me pause in honor of my favorite comedian ever, Eddie Izzard.
Yeah. And then Eddie decided, like you, after many years of being in the one place, decided to move to Los Angeles and came to me one day, which is really funny, because I have a program of 3 months in advance I booked. And he came to me and he said, Flanny, my boy, I want to start doing a show. Can we do tomorrow night? And I want to do 21 nights. And I said, Eddie, this machine is like, no, I'm not going to cancel people. No, I don't want you to cancel. I'll come in at 6 o'clock, darling. And I was like, no. We're setting up. It's a restaurant. So I recommended this place that was a defunct theater, that nothing seemed to be going on. And it was called the Coronet Theater. And I'd been there to see a play, and the place was really run down. And I said, but listen, all you need is 2 speakers and a microphone. Start doing that on a regular basis. And he did. And I went to see him a couple of times, and we're good friends. And I sat there at this Coronet Theater, and I had been looking to move because immediately the success of Largo was overwhelming. It was not for me, but for people who couldn't get tickets to come in. It was just small. It was 130 people. So I needed to get a bigger place, but I didn't want to go too big, not out of any insecurity. I just wanted it to be an intimate thing. And this theater is 270 seats. And I was like, this is it. And it took 6 years to get it.
6 years.
6 years. It took me 6 years to, figure out how I'm going to get. Not out of any lack of trying for me. It was constant waiting for the owner to go, okay, you can come in and take the lease.
Okay, Americans listening to this would be like, wait, if you're filling up 130 seats, then you would go find a 1,000-seat venue.
Right.
You were like, we're filling 130 seats, but this seat is 270.
Yes.
Which is some of the larger questions I have for you. Why did you keep it small?
Because I wanted to retain 2 things. I wanted to be able to freely move with the artist without any connection to the business people, to development deals, to anything else. It's fine if they had that, but I wanted the artist to try that this was a place, a safe place, that they could come and try out new material. Or the material that they have, they want to slightly change it. So most comedians that are on the road, like the great Pete Holmes, happy birthday, have a tendency, which is why Rob and I met, when they go out on the road, these people want to hear the greatest hits. Anything they know about, you better do that. I want to create a space for them to have a platform to develop the stuff that they do to take out on the road.
See, because that's the thing, is you intentionally, well, I mean, let's move over to a different area. Religion.
Right.
There's the party line.
Right.
There's the thing that needs to be said to keep the thing floating.
Mm-hmm.
Politics. There's the thing the candidate needs to say.
Right.
There's the thing that keeps everybody's salaries paid, that keeps everybody on message.
Right.
But then there's actually what the politician really thinks in real life.
Right.
Then there's actually what the religious leader really thinks.
That's right.
What they're really wrestling with or thinking about, or what new experience they've had that they're sort of working through.
Right.
You, with Largo, are like intentionally going to create a space where somebody they can be whoever they are in this moment, not whoever they are out there in capital letters.
That's right. And also, the thing about Largo is, and it sounds very cocky, but it's just the fact, is I'm a one-man band. And I'm also, not that I endorse any politicians, but the reason that people are tapping into the strength, the building strength of Bernie Sanders is they can see that he's not bought by people. He's not owned by any influence. So there's no studio in Los Angeles that's saying, get our guys in there. And I actually rebel against that when they say, oh, you should put this guy. No, I shouldn't. And it all comes through recommendations of other friends of mine. So Pete Holmes goes, my friend Rob Bell. And that's how that happens. Or I will get a lot of submissions, and I listen and look at everything. out of respect to anyone that's doing art. I will look at anything, but then there are a few things that I will go to Henry Rollins and go, Henry, this is where you need to be. I know you hate doing Los Angeles. I know you hate. Richard Lewis, the legendary comedian, won't play Los Angeles. Well, he's playing in Largo in November, but he doesn't want to know who's in the audience. Same thing with Larry David, who's performing Friday night. Larry's working out new stuff. He doesn't want to be on YouTube.
Larry David, who created Seinfeld with Seinfeld.
Yes, and Curb Your Enthusiasm, and is playing Bernie Sanders on Saturday Night Live right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't do live stuff.
Hadn't done live stuff in many, many years, and contacted me and says, I want to do stand-up, with the idea of maybe going on tour. And I said, okay. And so I've slotted him into shows where he's unannounced, and he'll come and he'll do a half hour, which is he's doing this Friday. But the idea is so back to the intimacy. I can control the environment in terms of filming, people on their cell phones, people talking. There's no distraction in that room. There's
Because
no bar
that's the
in the
thing.
room.
By the way, if you come to Largo before the show, Michael or you or somebody says no cell phones,
Right.
no recording.
Right.
It's the opposite of what everybody else is doing, which is trying to get it out. You're like,
Right.
no, this
And
is
also
for the
what-
people in the room.
That's right. And then also, like, people last night at Rob Bell and Pete Holmes' show know that they're going to be able to listen to this because it's recorded.
I have a Pete Holmes Rob Bell show hangover right now. By the way.
Yes, we do both.
I woke up like, what happened?
It was very good. But also, Michael, which I've asked him started to do recently, is to tell people, I know your instinct is to whip out your phone and capture this. We are taking photographs, which are posted from last night,
Yes.
on Instagram. And you can share them, you can keep them, and you have an image of last night of better photographs than you could ever take of Rob Bell and Pete Holmes on stage. And then there's the document through the podcast of that show. So there's a great sense of relaxation with people coming in and going there. I don't have to sit beside somebody. Literally, I was at a show recently, and somebody had an iPad out and was filming in front of me, and it looked like
Where were you at?
It was at the place called the John Anson Ford Theatre, and it was a performer called Richard Thompson, who's an amazing guitar player. And the woman in front of me...
Somebody had an iPad
Yes.
holding it up.
And I went to the usher and I said, can you fucking stop this? I mean, and by the way, it's dark, and so the iPad is glowing, and everyone behind is good. And so they said, we can't do anything because our policy is no flash photography.
Oh, my word. From our policy from 1973.
Yes, and so I said to the lady, you're being rude. Put that thing away before I shove it up your ass. And she did. Yeah, and then everyone clapped behind me. I wasn't looking for...
So, because because when I first came to Largo to hear Pete, and I was like, wait, there's some thought. This is all intentional.
Right.
And the reason why this place has this incredible reputation, people use the word magical. You had this awareness that everybody is at an experience, but they are filming the experience, so they're here but not here. And
Yes.
you were like, no, this place will be a place where if you're here, you're actually here.
Right.
And you're not tweeting. You are just in the moment. And the person on stage is doing something that is not what they would normally be doing somewhere else,
That's
probably.
right. And getting back to a formative thing, which was like, how did Largo start? I had a partner. I don't have a partner anymore. And our major disagreement was I didn't concur that the customer is always right. The performer is always right. So you respect the performer. You make the performer happy in their environment. They're going to give the best show. The audience will recognize that. And they don't have to come out and go, I love Largo. This is where I do a lot of them do. But the audience, knowing that the responsibility is taken from them to have a device and sit there for 90 minutes, they start to really like that. And it's not an old-timey feeling. It's just, we're in this moment. We can remember this moment. We're never going to look at that fucking dodgy photograph on a cell phone anyway. And then it's a more attentive audience and a more relaxed audience. So the field work was done of literally walking up to somebody and giving them $32 cash and going, this is the price of the ticket and that's your ticket charge. You're out. Goodbye. We warned you. You're talking, you're drunk, you're whatever you are. It very rarely happens now. But
you've done that.
We have done that. I will just give me the money and I'll go up after the usher or Michael will say to somebody, you have to be quiet or you have to stop recording. And then we'll give the money. I haven't done it in 8 years. This year will be at the Coronet Theatre. We haven't done it in probably 7 years. But there was a lot of reinforcing of, no, you have to. And he says, if you want to talk, go somewhere else. If you want to record, go somewhere else. If you want to use your device, smoke from it, talk to it, whatever you have to do, go somewhere else. And that's the idea. And so it's for people laugh, and because they think, oh, that's funny that he still has to say that. But he does, because people bring friends who have never been there. And like last night, there was quite a percentage of people who had never been to the venue.
Yeah.
And so we have to remember that at all times, even if there's 9 people that have never been out of 270, that, you know.
And then how do you... So how much of your energy is spent with... Is Largo all that you do? But then I keep bumping into people who are like, oh, Flanny helped me organize this.
Right.
Or Flanny was involved in this.
Yeah, I do, and you know, it's an exclusive on your podcast that Largo. The reason I dropped the cafe from Largo on Fairfax Avenue. I said, this is not a cafe, this is a venue, and I stuck my chest out and said, this is the spot. And it wasn't a Kanye West, you know, kind of like, here I am, blah 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 blah. Thank God. It was just, I was so secure with the venue and that the talent that were performing there. I was like, this is great. We need a bigger place. So now I'm at the point this is the 20th anniversary coming up in September of me doing Largo by myself. And there's the exclusive aspect of it. I called it Largo at the Coronet, with the intent of it's going to be Largo at the Town Hall, New York, Largo at the Opera House in Seattle, or wherever it happens to be. So we're going to start branching out in terms of doing more stuff. But I have been involved with other people with projects and helping, you know, with casting of certain people. And through Largo, so people will call me and go, listen, I don't want to talk to this guy's agent. This project's special. How do I? And so I go, okay, great. That's easy. I can do that. I can help you facilitate that. So there's been a great sense of that stuff too.
And what brings you the most joy? Because you were there last night, meeting
My
people, hugging
children.
people. Talk about your kids.
No. What brings me the most joy is to sit backstage with no other distractions and see how excited you were last night, how excited Pete was last night, and me throwing a spanner in the works and going, let the song play a bit so that I could just see you guys. But also,
the walk-on song.
Yes. So we had a Ray Charles big band thing blaring, and most people would come out on the opening thing, and I separately said to you and Pete, let it play for a little bit. And then I sat back and I watched the two of you boys just jump up and down going, we're going to get to play ball. We don't have to go to school. And that was the energy, and that brings me the most excitement. And then also, then to run from the backstage to go and sit in the back row, or actually like last night I went up to the sound booth, which is, you know, in the back row area, up above the back row, and just watch it and just see everybody tuned into the same thing for 95 minutes or whatever it was, you know.
Okay, when I look at the Largo list, when I see Sarah Silverman, Zach Galifianakis, Judd Apatow, Spinal Tap, when you talked to me first about doing a show, and you said to Kristen, like, I want you to become part of the family.
Yes.
There aren't, whatever it is that I do,
Yeah.
why, I've always wanted to ask you this, why in the world, based on all of the history you have at Largo, that you would invite me to do my thing?
So my favorite night of the year is New Year's Eve. I don't drink. I'm not a non-drinker. I drink a glass of wine every so often because I take it off, and we close 2 nights of the year every year, no matter what, St. Patrick's Night and New Year's Eve, and we're closed for mental health reasons. I don't want to deal with the horse shit that goes on with people. And I've been offered a lot of money, do New Year's Eve party. I sit, and it was my decision to get married. It was my decision to have a baby. It was my decision. Every year I take stock of where I'm at. And then lower in the list is the professional aspect, where I go, what does Largo need? What has Largo done? And then the business side of it is cross-pollination. People that will come to see Rob Bell will come to see Pete Holmes, and vice versa. And they'll also go, Henry Rollins? Oh, holy shit, I heard Larry David's here. Let's find out when he's here. And so this cross-pollination of different communities coming to see the same through a process of like, oh, Rob, I love Rob. And then Rob said, this place is great. We checked out the schedule. A lot of people have never gone on the Largo calendar and gone, Sarah Silverman, Tig Notaro, Jackson Brown, which is all last week. But they come to your show and they go, maybe we should. That was a relaxing night. That was fun. Let's do that again. And so when you came into the picture, I went, okay, let me see. Let me think about this. And so then I immediately, having met you was a big thing. So the biggest thing is a connection in terms of this person would be a joy to work with. I made a decision 7 years ago that no matter how talented people are, I'm not working with them unless I like them. And I've eliminated a few people. And so a big part of it is I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you guys.
Oh yeah, Kristen Bell just entered.
Kristen just walked
house.
in. Just
Always the
hobbled
highlight.
in. She looks like she's going to... Oh, is that for the cleaning of the... Yeah. Thank you.
A little spilled coffee in the back house. We're good.
Yes.
And Kristen has it's a dodgy ankle.
A dodgy ankle is getting better.
Kristen sprained her ankle. Has some crutches. Did you bring out cleaner with crutches? Yeah. You really do it all.
Multitasker.
Yes. I don't know
So
where we were.
great.
Oh,
No, so bringing you into the family of sorts is, I every so often will take stock of what ethnicity do we have? What do we have enough women represented? Do we have enough spoken word represented? So my primary thing is, it was noted initially, Largo, for the great music. So, you know, Elliott Smith and Colin Hay and Amy Mann and Fiona Apple all sprung out of this place, and John Bryan sprung out of this place. And immediately the business started going, oh, this guy knows songwriters. We're signing songwriters. Let's go. And so there was a big influx of that. And I would hold back. I would actually put shows on sale to try and find the fans as fast as possible so that the tickets would buy up, and it would be harder for other people to get in. You know, but out of respect, out of like Amy Mann would be like, I want to play to my fans. I don't want to play to business people. The show's not ready yet. Mm-hmm. So that happened. And then the comedy came in because the songwriters were so damn serious. So the songwriting came in, and then there was more of okay, they're actually making fun of the songwriters, and the songwriters like it. That's great. And so we cross-pollinated of having Patton Oswalt open for Amy Mann or Paul F. Tompkins opening for Colin Hay. And then it became, okay. And then Steve Martin, who performs at Largo, told me years ago that that's what he did in the 70s. He went out on tour. Gary Shandling went out on tour for 3 weeks opening for Donna Summer in the 70s. Yeah. And Gary told me that recently, and I was just like, wait, you opened for a disco act? And he was like, nobody wanted me there. They were horrified that I was there. And the sets would get shorter, and then suddenly one night he hit Philadelphia, and people were like, oh, we'll give this guy with the hair a chance. And that's what he told me. And then he was like, the challenge of it was fantastic, and he just needed him to put in time on stage to be more. So, you know, that happened. And then so with you, I've done a lot of series between Seamus Heaney, who is my poetic idol that I love, and writers like George Saunders. I reach out to people and go, we need this. We need a literary sense. We need Rob Bell to question. We Rob Bell to entertain, and it's all there. And so there's an aspect of what you're doing which you're hugely, you know, you come from a musical background, but you understand comedy, you understand everything, and so your show brings all that together in a way. So it's a very obvious choice without being obvious, you know.
Well, that's what I was thinking for people who are listening. Everything you've been saying is both obvious and not obvious. Mm-hmm. And so many people...
And trial and error as well, you know.
Right. Like, so many people, what should I do with my life? I'm living in Nebraska. I'm living in Florida. I'm living in England.
Right.
I'm living in... How do I make a life? How do I make a life? But what I pick up from you and for so many people is you just keep trying things.
Right.
Some things work, some things don't. You have these key moments when your own instincts tell you, do this. It might not make the most money. We could get a much bigger venue and make more. But no, it's not about money. It's not about prestige. It's about some inner sense of this is a thing that I could do, that I could hold my head high.
Right. There's a business sense to, in terms of what I'm doing and what you're doing too. Certainly there's a business acumen thing that I would advise anyone that's a musician or a performer or, learn the business aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a guitar player, learn open tunings, learn the care of your guitar, learn anything that anyone else is doing, magpie it, steel bits here and there. But with getting into the performative thing, learn the business of it. Like, you want to run a theater? Okay, well, your base rent's going to be $26,000 on 270 seats. You're going to need insurance. You're not going to need a staff. So before you know it, your expenses are $50,000 a month. Do you have enough shows to sustain that?
Whoa.
Yeah, that's Largo.
Yeah. So to me, every artist, every person creating something, from an accountant to a mom creating whatever,
right.
If there isn't undergirded by solid structure,
right,
like do the numbers line up?
Right.
then you can't be free.
But then also having the confidence of knowing that when I switched venues, it was 2008. What happened in 2008?
Yeah, crash.
Accountants were like, stay where you are, son. Do not take any risks. And the same fella that said, Los Angeles is here, this is for me, said, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be successful. Don't worry. But also at that point, I'd been doing it for 13 years. And I knew that in the first few months, which is the very first show was Amy Mann. The second show was Tenacious D. The third show was, I just stocked it for the first few months of all the biggest names. Will Ferrell did a thing for 5 nights. There was a lot of...
Will Ferrell's great.
Yeah.
As a person.
He's a fantastic person. And from the moment I met him maybe 18 to 20 years ago to now, he hasn't changed. He's a lovely, lovely man. And also very supportive and will say to me, hey, put me in. Do something. But he's very busy. He does like 3 movies a year. But there are people like that. And so the thing, if you're living in Nebraska and if you're living in... And Pete quoted somebody last night, you can get out of there. But if you want to do what this is,
you can do it.
You can do it anywhere. There's always a community, and you just have to tap into that and see how, But the fiscal thing is an important thing that people underestimate.
Yeah, but there are these key moments when you made counterintuitive moves to create a community that I think is really interesting for anybody anywhere who wants to be a part of a community.
Right. And I said that to Kristen just a while ago. That I'm very much, as much as I'm hanging out with you and Valerie and we're backstage after the show, as soon as I come out, I immediately say, where are we at? And then I'll ask Michael, did the people enjoy it? I didn't have to ask last night. But I'll eavesdrop on people going, oh my God, this place and that thing and this. And it all makes me feel like, okay, that's the right path. I don't need that endorsement, but it's reading the temperature of the people that come there. Because there's a certain amount of schooling, like you say, as soon as they get there, they're, here's the bar, here's the lobby, here's do whatever. And then as soon as they're sitting in their seats, it's like, this is what you can't do for the next 90 minutes. But what you can do pays off.
Yeah, and I think about all the people I interact with who are starting something or trying to do something fresh in the world, whatever it is, a mom's group, a co-op, a garden.
Yeah.
The clearer you are on boundaries, this is what's permissible, this is what's not.
Right.
That's not being authoritarian or heavy-handed. That's being healthy and clear.
Right.
And that people respect boundaries.
Right.
Even in a modern age where everybody's like, no one tells me what to do. This is what you're going to do. Okay. If they sense there's a good heart behind it.
Right.
Figure out what your thing is and then stay true to it and then be very clear about those boundaries.
And that's right. And it doesn't transplant from, like Chris and I were talking about the idea of feeling disappointed because your child is sick. So... if a show doesn't work, it doesn't work. If your child gets an ear infection, it's devastating, but through a process of having one child and another child and then seeing that child develop, you go, oh, this is meant to happen. I'm just meant to recognize it and make sure that it goes away. And so, and with the garden, the gophers, who told me there was going to be gophers, right? So, but there are all these challenges. But the thing with my business in particular and with yours is, seeing a couple-year plan, not a 5-year plan, but living in the day, living every day, but going, okay, so where are we next year? And so I'm already thinking next year, Largo may not be at the Cornet Theater.
Other cities?
No, in Los Angeles, there's another venue I'm looking at. So,
you heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
Well...
And I've had my eye on this other venue for a couple of years, and I'm waiting for the right moment. And I would never leave the Cornet Theater unless I had something that was twice as good. So so that's the idea. And I'm not looking to constantly expand, but I went from 130 seats to 270 seats, and now it needs to be 500 seats. And I can still do the intimacy with 500 seats, because the place I'm looking at has 300 seats downstairs, which is pretty much the same as Largo, and 185 seats in the balcony. And so you can make it work within that, So, but the idea of that is, I don't want to lose the people that are popular. So Sarah Silverman, Tig Notaro, John Mulaney, who's unbelievable. These shows we don't advertise. People have to find them, and they sell out right away. So in order for that to grow, it needs to be in a bigger space, so that the same thing happens, but those artists feel like, oh, wow, okay, we're doing better? So there's always a thing with artists that they want to know that things are moving. and stuff. And a venue needs to have that as well. A venue needs to have a thing where the staff go, oh, wow, this is nicer. And because it's nicer, it's easier. You know.
Wow. But you would keep the current one? Maybe not. Okay.
I don't know. I'm looking at it right now. And
folks, this is like breaking news.
This is the exclusive,
This is breaking news to me.
And then what I want to do with the other place is, because it's bigger, I can work less. I can open less nights. So at the moment we're open, as if you look at the schedule, we're open 30 nights, 28 nights, sometimes with double shows a night, turning the house. I want to do 15 shows a month. And I'm in the middle of this collection of, as you asked what I do outside. So I have this collection of short stories I think I told you about that I'm writing, and it's just, I'm getting so busy that it's, detouring. And then I did the Marty Feldman book, which was so much work last year that
right.
I went, I have to figure out a time to do what I need to do.
So let me say to people, because I'm reading the book right now, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
This legendary British comedian, Marty Feldman, who like Monty Python.
Right, he put Monty Python, pretty much, he didn't put them together, but he introduced a lot of them to each other and then had a platform of a show that he brought individual members in as a writing team, and then they all went, oh, we should,
do something.
And then became Monty Python.
So this amazing British sort of hero of comedy.
Right.
You knew his widow.
His widow came to Largo the first 3 months that we were open. And so, but this is back when I had a partner in 92. And she came in December 2nd, and I didn't know, somebody said, this is Loretta Feldman. And I said, oh, how you doing? And she was very, very, beautiful with long flowing things and thick British accent. And I said, Feldman, like Marty Feldman? And she goes, yes. And I said, oh, nice to meet you. And she goes, are you Flanagan as in Flanagan? And I went, yes. And she goes, it's nice to meet you too, darling.
Wait, did you say as in Marty Feldman, meaning...
I didn't know she had any
Feldman,
relation. Feldman.
Like, that's a famous Feldman name, not, oh my word, this is the widow of Marty Feldman.
But the gay man that introduced me said, this is my friend Loretta Feldman's. And I said, did you say Feldman as in Feldman, Marty Feldman, or is it Feldman? Sorry, I didn't catch. And she said, oh. And then so she enjoyed the show, and then afterwards and come up and she goes, did you know that Marty Feldman was my husband? And I went, oh, no, I'm sorry, I had no idea. And so then we started a friendship, and I didn't know until afterwards that was the 10th anniversary of Marty's death. She was at home, depressed, and two gay friends said, there's a new nightclub and we're taking you out. And we became really great friends. And so that was the 10th anniversary of it. He died in 1982. We were open in 92. And she passed away in 2011. Where are we now? Yes, 5 years ago. And we were very, very good friends. And she had told me that Marty, who, by the way, was Igor from Young Frankenstein. He was in a lot of, he was a really great writer in England and continued to write and was working on his autobiography, went off to make a movie called Yellowbeard in Mexico and died of a massive heart attack at 48. And she knew that he had written a book or was in the process of writing a book, but was so devastated by his loss, she couldn't deal with it.
There were like boxes in an
everywhere.
attic or something, right?
His hump from Young Frankenstein was up there. His scripts, everything is up there. She kept everything, but had a housekeeper just put it all in the attic so that she would never have to deal with it, and lived in the house. And but way before she was ill, she said to me, "Listen, when I die, I want you to have this house." And I'm like, "I don't need your house; it's falling down," jokingly. But then she'd say to me, "Well, in particular, there's something up in the attic that is Marty's story, and I want you to get it out there. If it's good, and it will be, I want you to get it out there somehow." And I said, "Get it out like how?" And she goes, "Oh, on the internet or something." So 6 months after she passed, it took that long to deal with that. And
you were an executor of her estate?
That's right.
She entrusted you with everything.
With everything. And then so I sat with a pot of tea one day, and I read this thing that said, "I, Marty," small e, big Y, big E.
Big E, yeah.
On a box. I opened it up, and it was very carefully with the Post-its and photographs and poems attached to the script. And so I had to take the whole thing out very carefully without things falling out, because I was like, somebody put a lot of attention into this. And I read it. And it was his life story up until he was about to go to, he says, "I'm going off now to have fun as a pirate," because it's a pirate movie. "And please stay tuned for at the very least stay, because I love you." And that's how it ends. And he died. And it's his life story up to that point.
And it's riveting. There's some very profound moments in it.
Very profound. He was a very deep thinker, and he was a very big lover of the art. So he loved jazz, and but from a very early age, he knew that he wanted to be a performer, and he was very inspired by Buster Keaton. who was a silent movie star. And the thing about the book that was so profound for me that it literally took me a while, I put it down and I went, I knew that I loved it. I didn't know all that stuff about him, even as well as I knew her. She was kind of closed in terms of, you could see the sense of sadness coming over her when she would mention, like she would say funny anecdotes and funny stories about when such and Robert De Niro came by the house, and she would tell you this funny story about Marty and Robert De Niro. But I did dig deep a little bit with her and his relationship, but she felt that she didn't want to read this book because if there was anything in there, not about affairs, not about drugs, not about anything else, that she didn't know, she would feel betrayed. And I totally understood that. And so when I read it, I'd happened to be friends with Eric Idle, who was very good friends from Monty Python, who was very good friends with Marty. And I read it, and Eric lives up the street from me. I brought him the script and said, read this. And it wasn't a script. It looked like a script, but it was a typed story. And Eric, who was about to turn 70, would have been a few years younger than Marty, stayed up all night reading it. It had a profound influence on him. He was just like, this guy was my hero. This was all our heroes. We have to get this book out. This has to be a book. And I went, okay, so how do we do that? And he goes, we'll find a publisher. And immediately we found a publisher who secured and said, every note, every name, every word, everything stays the same. There's no correction. There's no excuse to say it was never edited. It goes out. And so then it was released in just before Christmas in Britain and immediately became a bestseller 33 years after he died. And the ironic thing about the whole thing, and for the people living in Nebraska and Utah and that want to do their own thing, please do your own thing, because this guy and his wife were a great love story, and he wrote poems for her. And he wrote this book, which is the second half of it is a love story about his relationship, and she never got to read that because she didn't, and the poems are beautiful. They're silly and they're beautiful, and his love for her is so profound that I think that if she had read that, it would have been a very cathartic and healing process for her. But she went on with the closed, I can't, I shan't, I won't. And so this book is a lesson of, like, at 48 years of age, at the end of it, he's been through the studio system and the beatdowns of the business of Los Angeles, and he is so optimistic and so fervent about, like, I know what I need to do, and I'm going to do it. And then he dies. So if you so you don't have to know anything about Marty Feldman. And the great thing is that I think Tyson Cornell. Do you know Tyson from? Used to work at Book Soup, but has a great imprint called Rare Bird Literature. He knows you and he knows your work too. But he's putting the book out. It's coming out the first week of May here, and it's the deluxe version of it because there's so many photographs that Marty wanted to be in it, and all the text is the same as the English version. The American version, there's a lot more photographs in there because in England they have this due diligence thing that if they can't find who took that photograph, they're not printing it.
Oh, my word.
In America, you have to go, that person's not around.
Yeah.
This photograph was taken 62 years ago.
Right.
And so I'm really happy that the book that's coming out is the deluxe version of that. And I set up a website called imarty.com, and I've put up all his work.
Oh, wow.
All his film clips, all his interviews. There's more coming up, but like him on the Johnny Carson show, him on...
So fascinating.
And his writing is really... And a brilliant mind. And I can see why when I talked to John Cleese, when I talked to different people that were just like, oh, no, this guy was what Charlie Parker was to sax players.
Right. And that's what I feel about him is for the people who love British comedy. They love Monty Python. They love... you read him and you're like, oh, it traces back.
Right.
To like,
and he never boasts. But he talks about the lineage of the people before him. So if you're into any kind of comedy, there's a great history in there. So it's like in America there was before George Carlin. Well, there was the Flip Wilson show. There, all these different things. Yeah. And it's much more recent. But Marty goes through the music hall thing, which I thought was fascinating in the book. The first parts of the book, where he was struggled kind of a vaudeville kind of act. Because there was no real... That's where I'm at. I'm in there somewhere. So there was no real venue of, like, what do we do? But it's his first sexual experiences. It's his first encounters with these creepy people in business. And it's... fascinating. I didn't see any of it coming. And when I read it, I was like, wow, am I glad I found this.
And this is your life. This is the kind of thing that comes your way.
Those are some of the kind of things that come my way. And as a result of doing this, the publisher in England asked me if I had any stories of my own. And I said, you want me to do a tell-all about Largo, about all that. And I thought it would be really funny to do a book. It's not fair, but I would have done a book, Confessions of a Hollywood Club Owner, and talk about And then Rob and Kristen and I went to swingers. And there's no drugs, there's no sex, and there's no rock and roll. It's just the most mundane,
Oh, right.
the tell-all. But the tell-all is that, yeah, we sat and we talked to the people that came to the show, and it was great.
It would be like what really goes on, and it would
Yeah.
be like us having a conversation about our kids.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
Or standing in the alley with Pete.
Or how
and
much
Val
we
last
hated
night.
that TV show thing that was on last night that we had high hopes for. Yeah, things like that. But anyway, as a result, I'm telling stories of growing up in Belfast and the moving and stuff like this. So I have a series of short stories that I'm plowing through and getting there. So that's
I love it.
the outside
Okay,
of thing.
stay tuned. I'm so glad you came to the back house.
Yeah, is that longer than Pete Holmes? No. How many minutes? Tell me the minutes.
45. It's great.
That's where we want to be, right?
It's perfect.
Listeners,
perfect.
thank you for your time.
And I love, I just am so inspired when I see somebody who is thriving and enjoys their life. First off, I'm always inspired. Your love for your wife and your kids, when we
Yeah.
first started talking. I'm always inspired by somebody who gets all that, understands how it all works.
Right.
That you give your best to the people closest to you.
Right.
And then from there, you try to do some good in the world.
Yeah, the funny thing is that the conundrum that I have is that we're all so busy that I take stock of that, like Pete's going to be gone for 3 months. I really want Rob and Kristen to meet Renee and the kids, and that little girl and my little girl.
Yeah.
And geographically, there's no excuse for it.
Yeah, right.
But Largo becomes very, very busy in terms of we're homeschooling the kids, so during the daytime I have to give it as much attention as possible, and then most nights I'm working. But I can take off most nights. I can dodge out and hang out with you and Pete tonight. I can do stuff like that. But the thing that I promised the performers that when they played at Largo, it wasn't anything in writing, but I'll be there. I'll make sure that the show clicks on time. We'll make sure that at the end of it, we had a good time and stuff like that. So I like to do that. And even for people who I don't know that well, like we have Graham Nash coming tonight and showing his life work of photographs.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Mm-hmm. And he's an amazing photographer. And Henry Diltz, who's another legendary photographer, they're going to discuss their life work tonight. And so they could have done it in a much bigger venue, but they wanted to do it at Largo. And I was like, wow, that's great. So there's shows that I want to be there for, and there's regular shows and stuff. And but I want to try, that's the next phase is I want to do it in a bigger room, not too big, with the same, but actually more production things. And so that when Rob Bell goes, what would be really cool if a screen
Yes, I'm already
just came down
I'm already.
and showed people something and then just fucked off, just went back to where it was. So the next house has that.
I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I love, you're so inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. You too. I mean,
And-
that's why I'm here.
There's so much about how you got to where you are now that there's so many lessons and truths in there that I think are so much about what it means to be alive and here in the world. So
I think the important thing that I find that looking at successful people that do what they're doing, and certainly Largo is a success, but is to find the balance in your life, the thing that fuels you, whether it's family or whatever it is. But you have to try. You just have to go. You just have to do it, get out there and do it, and it'll be fine, I think.
why
I
would
know.
we not stop
I
right
know.
there?
There it is.
Grace and peace, everybody. Thank you, Flanny.
Of course.
Oh, my word. We almost ended.
On a great note.
I, at the beginning, said you have to tell the Bo story.
Yes.
We have to end with a Bo story.
Right.
So,
Bo Burnham is a beautiful man and a young comedian.
very funny.
Very, very funny, and most listeners will probably know him. And he has specials on TV. And he was working at a show at Largo, quite a regular thing where he was building for a tour. And he was doing a monthly show and popping up on other people's shows and doing sets. And one of the parts of his show was he has a young audience, young girls mostly, like 15 to 20, and Largo's all ages, so it's great. And some of them come with their parents, some of them come in groups. The parents drop them off, and this is for maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So Bo went out and did his act, and he had a few guests. But during the daytime, Michael, who tells everyone to turn off their cell phones, got a call from some business people saying Justin Bieber is coming to Largo to see Bo Burnham. He saw him on YouTube. He doesn't know him. He wants to come. And so, but he's got a lot of attention around right now, so we need security and blah, blah. And Michael said, don't worry about it. Drop him off like all the other parents do. And so he arrived.
By the way, if you call ahead and say we don't want to make a big deal about it, You've just called ahead and made a big deal about it.
Yes.
For the record.
Yes. And Michael had to tell him that 2 nights before Barbara Streisand pulled up with her husband, they had purchased tickets and walked into the bar, had a drink, walked into the theater, had a thing. All the gays went gaga, but never went near her, and she left and had a great experience. And so Michael said, listen, Barbara was just here. And they tried to tell Michael, no, but this is Justin Bieber. And Michael's like, okay, right, okay. So anyway, they dropped Justin off with his girlfriend, Selena Gomez, who was dressed like she was going to the Oscars. She had a ball gown on. And her mother, not Justin's mother, her mother. And they came in, and every reflection of a picture or a mirror that was between the front door and the theater, Justin found it and tossed his hair and looked at himself. And she was beautiful. And they went in and they sat down. So before the show, as I always do, I checked in with Bo, I checked in with everybody, and I said, everything good? You all right? And he goes, yeah. How does it look out there? I said, it's a great audience. It's full, and it's all your people. And he never mentioned anything about Justin Bieber to me, so I never mentioned anything to him. But it was like, that's seismic in the room, whatever. And I wanted to say to him, listen, if there's a strange thing going on, it's because he's out there. Because, young girls will turn around and go, oh. So, but I didn't say anything. And his manager was the one that got him in contact with Michael, the manager. So it's important to know that the manager knew that Justin Bieber was coming. So I didn't have any heads up. So Bo goes on stage and he has a joke about young girls being manipulated, and with the songs that go, like especially Usher, that go, la la la, la la la, take care of yourself, don't listen to anybody. Meanwhile, he's manipulating you.
Yes.
He'd been doing that for the first 3 months in a row.
And
on
Usher
this,
is the example.
Usher is the example. And on this particular night, he decides to say, girls, Justin Bieber is no good. He's a motherfucker. He's evil. And everybody in the room goes, Justin's in on this. This is great. Bo takes it to levels that he starts cursing, he starts saying things, and it just gets really nasty about like how sick he is of these people, manipulating young girls in particular, and then does the song to prove it. And then everyone
Wait,
claps
does the
him.
song mean like he sings?
He sings not a Justin song, but like an Usher song that Justin may have sang on. And he goes, and then he's telling you this, but meanwhile, you know what this guy's really about? This is what this guy's really about. And gets on a tangent. And it's all really funny, but then it gets really serious and dark. And he goes, how do I get myself out of this fucking hole? And so then he goes into an old bit and then does the thing. So after the show, Michael, who was in the office doing paperwork and stuff, hadn't heard any of that. And the 2 SAS guys who were protecting Justin, who were standing in the courtyard, like one outside the door, one outside the front. Justin comes running out with his mom, with his girlfriend and her mom, and Michael says, "Do you guys want to say hi to Bo?" And they were like, "Oh no, we don't need to say hi to Bo," and they left. And I went backstage, and Bo was like, "I think that went really good. The crowd was great, right?" The crowd was great, and I went, "Yeah. Do you want to see anybody?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Justin Bieber?" And he goes, "I really went for him tonight. I don't know where that came from." And I said, "Bo, Justin was here tonight in the audience, and that's what prompted that, right?" And he goes, "You're fucking with me." I said, "No, I'm not fucking with you. Justin was here with Selena Gomez and her mom, and you took him to the
shed."
To the shed, exactly. And he is such a nice guy, Bo, that he was horrified. And he goes, "How did you not tell me?" And I said, "Because your manager arranged it. I thought you knew, and I didn't want to say anything before, And he was like, he didn't blame me or anything like that, but he's like blaming himself. So the next day, he booked a performance on Conan O'Brien and went on Conan O'Brien to apologize to Justin Bieber. To say that what I said was right, but I didn't want to make you embarrassed in the room. And then got hate mail like you wouldn't believe. Because he only made the matter worse. Because only the people in the room knew about this. But then
Right.
the Bieber fanatics got on it. Like, what did you say about him?
So they don't even know what he said. They just know he said something bad, so they're going to defend him.
Yeah. So it took Bo a while to get out of the shed after that.
That is an
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say about
It's
that
that
story.
small world that you just don't know. Like in the
Yeah.
same sense that many, many years before, Amy Mann thought her career was just over. This is the girl that we talked about that sang Voices Carry from Till Tuesday. And she sang a song called Save Me. And Paul Thomas Anderson, the director, was starting to write a movie called Magnolia and said, I'm going to have her be the musician to do all of that. And then a year later, she's nominated for an Oscar. Guess who she lost to? Phil Collins. That's an inside thing, but yeah.
And we'll end there.
There it is.
Thank you for telling the Bo story.
You
That just
are
wraps
welcome.
it all up perfectly.
All right, cool.